The chickens wouldn't stop screaming. Liam pressed his hand over Owen's mouth in the darkness of the root cellar while something heavy walked across the floorboards above them. Dust rained down between the wooden slats. His little brother's eyes were wide, reflecting the thin strip of light coming through the crack in the cellar door. 6 months had passed since the aliens came. 6 months since Mom told them to run and hide. 6 months since the screaming stopped and the farm went silent. Liam was 12 now, though he felt much older. Owen had just turned 9 last week. They celebrated with a can of peaches and didn't talk about how it should have been different. The honey badger curled between them didn't care about birthdays. Scraps only cared about 3 things: food, sleep, and protecting the 2 boys who fed him. Dad used to say Scraps was special, something about genetic enhancements and intelligence boosting. Liam didn't understand most of it, but he understood that Scraps was smarter than any normal animal and absolutely refused to be afraid of anything. Even aliens with weapons and armor couldn't make the badger back down. The footsteps above moved toward the kitchen. Metal scraped against wood. Voices spoke in sounds that hurt to hear, all clicks and hisses that made Liam's teeth ache. They were back. The collective had come to their planet 2 years ago. At first, the aliens just watched from orbit. Then they started landing scouts. Then they started taking resources. Then they started removing the humans who got in their way. Liam's parents got in their way. Owen trembled against his side. The younger boy hadn't spoken since that day, not a single word in 6 months. He nodded, shook his head, and sometimes made small sounds, but the words were gone. Liam didn't push. He figured Owen would talk again when he was ready. Scraps lifted his head. The badger's nose twitched. His lips pulled back to show teeth that had torn apart more than one alien scout who got too close to the boys. Liam put his other hand on the animal's back, feeling the coarse fur and solid muscle underneath. "Not yet," Liam whispered. "Wait." The cellar had saved their lives before. Dad built it deep, with thick walls and a hidden entrance under the kitchen cabinet. Mom had shoved them down here with Scraps while Dad tried to fight. Liam still remembered his father's last words through the closing door. "Stay hidden, stay smart, stay alive." 2 out of 3 wasn't bad. The alien voices grew louder. Something crashed upstairs. Glass broke. They were searching the house again, probably looking for salvage. The collective didn't waste anything. They cataloged every human settlement, stripped it of useful materials, and moved on to the next one. Liam reached into his jacket pocket and touched the hard rectangle he'd found 3 weeks ago. An alien data pad dropped by a careless scout near the barn. He'd been teaching himself to read the symbols, cross-referencing with Dad's old military manuals hidden in the cellar. The collective wasn't as careful as they thought. Their security was lazy. Their encryption was weak. And Liam was angry. Not the hot, screaming kind of angry. The cold, patient kind that Dad used to get when something needed fixing. The kind that made plans and waited for the right moment. Owen tugged on his sleeve and pointed up. The footsteps had stopped. Silence pressed down from above, somehow worse than the noise. Scraps tensed, ready to launch himself at anything that came through the cellar door. Minutes crawled by. Liam counted his heartbeats to stay calm. 200, 300, 500. Finally, the footsteps started again, moving away. The front door opened and closed. Engines hummed outside, then faded into the distance. Liam waited another hour before moving. Scraps climbed the ladder first, pushing open the hidden door with his blocky head. The badger sniffed the air, checked every corner, then looked back and made a soft, churring sound. "Safe." The boys climbed up into the wrecked kitchen. The aliens had overturned furniture and smashed cabinets. Liam's chest tightened when he saw Mom's favorite mug in pieces on the floor. Owen knelt and carefully gathered the fragments, holding them like they were made of gold. Liam walked to the window and looked out at the farm. The barn still stood, though its red paint was faded and peeling. The fields were overgrown. The chicken coop needed repairs. Everything their parents built was slowly falling apart. But the boys were still here, still alive, still fighting in their own small way. He pulled out the data pad and turned it on. The alien symbols glowed in the dim light. Over weeks of study, he'd learned to navigate the basic systems. Today, he found something new in the communications folder. A map coordinates a timeline. His blood went cold as he read the information. The collective was planning another attack, a big one. The settlement of New Haven, 40 miles east, was marked for resource extraction in 3 days. 3,000 people lived there. Families, kids, people like Mom and Dad used to be. Owen appeared beside him and looked at the screen. The younger boy's face went pale. He tugged on Liam's sleeve urgently, pointing at the map, then at Liam, then at the door. "Yeah," Liam said, "we have to warn them." Owen shook his head hard and pointed at the two of them. Just kids who would listen. Liam closed his eyes and saw his father's face, heard his mother's voice, felt the weight of 6 months learning to survive alone. "Then we'll make them listen," he said. "We didn't survive this long to let it happen again." Scraps made a low, growling sound that might have been agreement. Owen looked at his brother for a long moment, then slowly nodded. The chickens had finally stopped screaming. The farm was quiet. But in the root cellar, hidden behind a false wall, Dad's old military cache waited. And 2 boys who had nothing left to lose were done hiding. Governor Walsh had the kind of smile that made Liam want to punch something. "Boys, I understand you've been through a terrible trauma," the man said from behind his massive desk. His office in New Haven's administrative building smelled like furniture polish and fake sympathy. "But we can't evacuate 3,000 people based on a story from 2 children." Liam gripped the alien data pad tighter. Owen stood beside him, silent as always, but his hands were balled into fists. Scraps waited outside in the hallway because the secretary had screamed when they tried to bring him in. "It's not a story," Liam said, keeping his voice steady like Dad taught him. "The collective is coming, 72 hours, maybe less now since we spent half a day getting here." Walsh glanced at his deputy, a thin woman named Foster who looked at the boys like they were broken toys. She shook her head slightly. "Liam, is it?" Walsh leaned forward, using that soft voice adults used when they thought you were stupid. "Grief can make us see patterns that aren't there. It can make us believe things that feel real but aren't. Have you boys talked to a counselor? We have excellent mental health services here in New Haven." Something hot and sharp twisted in Liam's chest. Owen's breathing got faster beside him. "I can read their language," Liam said. He held up the data pad. "This is their operational schedule, attack coordinates, force deployment, it's all here." Foster stepped forward and took the data pad from his hands. She turned it over, pressed a few buttons, and frowned at the alien script scrolling across the screen. "This could be anything," she said. "Shopping lists, personal messages, without proper translation software, you're just guessing." "I'm not guessing. I've been studying it for weeks. My father had military training manuals, code books. He knew this might happen someday." Walsh stood up and walked around the desk. He put a hand on Liam's shoulder, and it took everything the boy had not to jerk away. "Your father was a farmer, son. A good man, I'm sure, but not a military analyst. And you're 12 years old. I know you want to help. I know you want to feel like you can protect people the way you couldn't protect your parents. But the best thing you can do right now is let the adults handle this." Owen made a small sound, almost like a whimper. His eyes were wet, but no tears fell. Liam saw his little brother's hands shaking. That was when he knew they were on their own. They had always been on their own. "Fine," Liam said. He grabbed Owen's hand and turned toward the door. "Keep the data pad. Maybe your experts can figure it out before everyone dies." They were halfway down the hallway when Foster called after them. "Boys, wait. Where are you going?" Liam didn't answer. He scooped up Scraps, who had been patiently waiting by the wall, and pushed through the building's front doors into the afternoon sun. New Haven stretched out before them. Houses lined clean streets. Children played in parks. People walked around with grocery bags and briefcases, thinking about dinner and homework and all the normal things that normal people thought about. None of them knew. None of them would believe two kids even if they tried to warn everyone individually. "Then we do it ourselves," Owen said. Liam stopped walking. He turned to stare at his brother. Owen's voice was rough from months of not using it, barely more than a whisper, but the words were clear. "You talked," Liam breathed. Owen nodded. His jaw was set in that stubborn way that meant he'd made up his mind about something. "We do it ourselves," he repeated, stronger this time. Scraps squirmed in Liam's arms, and he set the badger down. The animal immediately pressed against Owen's legs, looking up at the boy with dark, intelligent eyes. Liam's mind raced. Just the two of them, a honey badger, some stolen alien tech, and 72 hours to stop an invasion that nobody else believed was coming. Dad's voice echoed in his memory, lessons taught while they fixed fences and fed animals. "Small doesn't mean weak," his father used to say. "It means underestimated, and underestimated is dangerous." "Okay," Liam said. "We need to go back to the farm, get everything from Dad's cache, the journals, the equipment, all of it." Owen pointed at the data pad in his pocket, the one Foster had given back. "No, they kept that one, but I copied the important files to this." Liam pulled out a small memory chip he'd been hiding in his sock. He grinned, and it felt strange after so long without smiling. "I'm not stupid." They made it back to the farm by evening. The house was still a mess from the alien search, but the hidden cache in the cellar was untouched. Liam pulled back the false panel in the wall and revealed what his father had been preparing for years. Weapons, not military grade, but good enough. Hunting rifles, handguns, boxes of ammunition. But more importantly, there were notebooks. Dozens of them filled with Dad's neat handwriting, tactical analysis, guerrilla warfare techniques, how to fight when you're outnumbered and outgunned. Owen pulled out a slim book with a worn cover. Field Manual, Asymmetric Warfare. He opened it and pointed to a passage their father had underlined 3 times. The smaller force must become unpredictable. Use terrain. Use surprise. Use the enemy's assumptions against them. Make them afraid of shadows. "Dad knew," Owen said quietly. "He knew we might have to fight alone." Liam looked at the supplies, at the notebooks, at his little brother who had finally found his voice again, and at Scraps who sat alert and ready for whatever came next. 3 days to prepare. 1 farm, 2 boys, 1 very angry honey badger. The collective had destroyed their family. Tomorrow, Liam and Owen would teach them why that was a mistake. The collective scout never saw the rope. One moment he was walking through the forest between the farm and the main road, checking his scanner for human settlements. The next moment, the ground disappeared beneath his feet, and he was dangling upside down from a tree. Branch, his weapon clattering to the dirt below. Liam watched from behind a fallen log. Owen crouched beside him, holding a makeshift detonator Dad had taught them to build from spare parts. Scraps was already moving, a low shadow darting through the underbrush toward the struggling alien. The scout saw the badger and made a sound between a laugh and a hiss. He reached for a sidearm, probably thinking Earth animals were harmless. Most collective soldiers thought that. They came from worlds where nature had been tamed thousands of years ago. Scraps hit the alien like a furry missile. Teeth sank into the scout's reaching arm. The creature screamed, a high-pitched sound that made birds scatter from nearby trees. It tried to shake the badger off, but Scraps held on with the same stubbornness he showed when the boys tried to give him baths. Liam whistled, 2 short bursts. Scraps immediately let go and bounded back to them, leaving the scout bleeding and panicking in the trap. "Good boy," Owen whispered, scratching behind the badger's ears. They watched the alien struggle for another minute before 3 more scouts came running. Perfect. The collective always traveled in groups of 4. Dad's notebook said they felt vulnerable alone but confident in small teams. Dad's notebooks also said confident enemies made mistakes. The scouts clustered around their trapped companion, trying to figure out how to get him down. One of them noticed Scraps's teeth marks and started scanning the forest with more attention. They were learning. That was fine. Liam wanted them to learn. He nodded to Owen, His brother pressed the button. The explosion wasn't huge, just enough to shatter the old mining charges they'd buried under the game trail. Dirt and rocks sprayed in all directions. 2 scouts went down immediately. The other 2 stumbled back, their shields flickering as they tried to block the debris. The boys were already moving. They'd practiced this for 2 days straight, running the route until Owen could do it in his sleep. Through the thick brush where adult humans would struggle, but skinny kids could slip through easily. Over the creek where they'd laid stepping stones. Under the low branches of the oak tree that Dad said was older than the colony itself. Behind them, alien voices shouted. Orders, confusion, maybe anger. Liam didn't speak their language well enough to tell emotions apart yet, but he was learning. They reached the secondary position, a small cave hidden behind berry bushes. Owen dove in first, Liam right behind, and Scraps brought up the rear like always. The badger turned around at the cave mouth and made himself big, blocking the entrance. Liam pulled out his father's old binoculars and watched through a gap in the bushes. The 2 standing scouts were helping their injured companions. One of them was speaking into a communication device, calling for backup, probably, or reporting an attack by human resistance forces. Good, let them think it was soldiers. Let them think it was adults with training and equipment. The collective had been on their planet for 2 years, but they'd never faced real resistance. Humans mostly ran or tried to negotiate. The few who fought did it openly in ways the aliens expected. Direct assaults, defensive positions, tactics that made sense to military minds. Dad's notebooks talked about the other kind of fighting, the kind that didn't make sense, the kind that got inside your enemy's head and made them jump at shadows. Owen tapped his shoulder and pointed. A collective transport was landing in the clearing, responding to the distress call. 6 more soldiers poured out, weapons ready, scanning for threats. Liam counted to 20, then whistled again. Different pattern this time. Scraps immediately backed into the cave, and the 3 of them went deeper, following the tunnel Dad had shown them years ago. It came out near the barn, almost half a mile away. By the time the collective soldiers found the cave entrance, the boys were gone. They hit the supply convoy at dusk. The trucks were moving slow on the damaged road, heading toward New Haven with equipment for the invasion. No heavy escort because the collective didn't think humans were a threat anymore. Why would they? There was no organized resistance, no army, just scattered survivors hiding in the ruins. Liam and Owen weren't hiding anymore. The lead truck hit the caltrops they'd scattered across the road. Tires exploded with satisfying pops. The driver swerved and crashed into a ditch. The second truck stopped to help. That's when Scraps ran out. The badger didn't attack. He just ran across the road in front of the trucks, back and forth, drawing attention. Alien soldiers laughed. One raised a weapon. Owen pressed the detonator. The abandoned tractor on the hill, the one Dad said didn't work anymore, suddenly worked just fine. It rolled down the slope, picking up speed, heading straight for the stopped convoy. The soldiers scattered. The tractor crashed into the second truck with a crunch of metal. In the confusion, Liam ran to the first truck and grabbed 2 packs from the back. Supplies, ammunition, whatever he could carry. Owen did the same with the third truck while Scraps kept making noise and running in circles. They vanished into the forest before the collective could organize a response. That night back in the cellar, they opened the stolen packs. Medical supplies, food rations that tasted like cardboard, and something better, a tactical display unit that showed collective positions in real time. Owen's eyes lit up. He pulled out the map they'd been making, marking every attack. The farm, the forest, the convoy road, a pattern was forming. "They're spreading out," Owen said, his voice getting stronger every time he used it. "Looking for us." Liam studied the display. His brother was right. Instead of focusing on New Haven, the collective was diverting forces to find whoever was attacking them. Dozens of soldiers searching the countryside. Soldiers who weren't preparing for the invasion. "We're buying time," Liam realized. "Every hour they spend looking for us is an hour New Haven can use to get ready." Owen nodded. Then he pointed to a section of the map where collective forces were densest. Hit them here next. Liam looked at his 9-year-old brother, who was planning military operations like he'd been born to it. He looked at Scraps, who was chewing on an alien ration pack and not caring that it was probably poisonous to Earth animals. He looked at the map and the stolen equipment and the notebooks full of his father's wisdom. Small doesn't mean weak, it means underestimated. Yeah, Liam said. We hit them there next, and we keep hitting them until they forget why they came here in the first place. Outside, the night was quiet, but somewhere in orbit, Collective Commander Drex was reading reports about an organized human resistance. He had no idea it was 2 children and a honey badger who refused to quit. Commander Drex stared at the casualty reports and felt something he had not experienced in 30 years of military service. Confusion. His forces had lost 12 soldiers in 4 days, not to organized resistance, not to military installations, to what the survivors described as ghosts, shadows, a demon beast with black and white fur that feared nothing, and laughter, child's laughter echoing through the forests before attacks came from nowhere. This is not possible, he said to his second officer. Humans do not fight this way. They use technology, tactics we understand, not these primitive ambushes. The second officer pulled up surveillance footage from the forest incident. Grainy images showed the trap, the explosion, and a brief glimpse of something small moving through the undergrowth. Analysis suggests juvenile humans, Commander, children. Drex's crest flattened against his skull. Children. Possibly orphaned survivors from previous operations. They appear to be alone, but their tactics suggest training. How many? Thermal scans suggest 2, maybe 3 individuals, plus an unidentified Earth animal. Drex stood and paced the command center. Around him, dozens of officers monitored screens showing their forces spread across the countryside. Forces that should have been preparing for the New Haven operation. Forces that were instead hunting children. Recall all search teams, he said. Return to the original mission parameters. We take New Haven in 48 hours as planned. His second officer hesitated. Commander, the attacks have damaged morale. The troops are requesting additional security before advancing. They fear more ambushes. They fear children. They fear the unknown, Commander. These attacks are psychological warfare, designed to make us cautious, designed to slow us down. Drex considered this. The officer was right. Whoever these humans were, they understood something fundamental about warfare. It wasn't about killing enemies. It was about making enemies afraid to move. Very well, he said. Leave 2 battalions to continue the search, but I want the primary force ready for New Haven. We will not let children delay the collective's advance. In the forest, Liam almost dropped the scanner when he saw the collective forces repositioning. They're going back, he whispered. Owen crawled up beside him and looked at the display. Most of the alien units were pulling away from their search patterns, heading back toward New Haven staging areas. Owen's face went pale. They had bought some time, but not enough. The invasion was still coming. Scraps nudged Liam's hand with his nose. The badger had been acting strange. All day, more alert than usual. His enhanced senses probably picked up something the boys couldn't detect yet. We need to hit them harder, Liam said. Make them think we're everywhere at once. Owen pulled out the notebook he'd been keeping. He'd learned to write in tactical shorthand from Dad's journals, marking maps with symbols only they understood. He pointed to several locations where collective forces would pass on their way to New Haven. The communications relay, the fuel depot, the command vehicle always at the center of their formations. Liam saw what his brother was suggesting and felt his stomach twist. Those targets were protected. Going after them meant getting much closer to enemy forces. It meant real danger, not just hit-and-run raids. Owen looked at him steadily. His little brother who used to cry during thunderstorms, who wouldn't sleep without a nightlight, who had watched their parents die and hadn't spoken for 6 months. That boy was gone. This Owen understood what needed to be done. "Okay," Liam said, "but we're going to need help." They spent the next day recruiting. The first kid they found was hiding in an abandoned greenhouse near the edge of their territory. Her name was Riley, age 11, her parents taken by the collective 3 months ago. She lived on stolen food and revenge fantasies. "You're serious," Riley said, looking at the weapons and equipment spread across the barn floor. "You two did all that damage." "3," Owen corrected quietly, pointing at scraps. The Badger was investigating a box of supplies, trying to figure out if anything was edible. Riley laughed. It was a sharp, bitter sound. "I'm in. What do you need me to do?" 2 more kids joined by evening. Brothers named Sam and David, ages 10 and 13, who had been living in their family's root cellar like Liam and Owen. Then a girl called Annie, age 8, who was small enough to fit through ventilation shafts and angry enough to want to try. By nightfall, Liam was looking at 5 additional faces lit by lantern light in the barn. 5 kids who had lost everything. 5 kids who wanted to fight back. "We can't beat them," Liam said. "We're too small, too few, but we can make them afraid. We can make them slow. We can buy time for people to evacuate or prepare or do something other than die without warning." "How?" Sam asked. Owen spread out the map. He pointed to the fuel depot first, then the communications relay, then several supply routes. His finger traced a pattern of attacks that would force the collective to split their attention in multiple directions. "We hit them everywhere at once," Owen said. "They think we're 2 kids. We show them we're an army." Riley leaned forward. "When?" "Tomorrow night, before they reach New Haven." Annie raised her hand like she was still in school. "What about the demon beast thing, the one the aliens keep talking about in their radio chatter?" Scraps looked up at the mention of his unofficial title. The Badger seemed pleased with himself. "That's our secret weapon," Liam said. "Aliens don't understand Earth animals. They think we're all soft like them. Scraps shows them different." They spent the night preparing. Liam taught them the signals, the escape routes. The rules Dad had written in his notebooks. Never stand and fight, hit and vanish, make them chase shadows, make them afraid of the dark. Owen worked with each kid individually, testing their skills. Riley was fast. Sam and David could carry heavy loads. Annie was fearless in a way that worried Liam but would be useful. By dawn, they had a plan. By noon, they had stolen enough supplies from collective patrols to arm themselves properly. By sunset, 7 children and 1 honey badger were in position around the collective's main staging area. Commander Drex reviewed his forces from the command vehicle. Everything was ready. New Haven would fall tomorrow. The human resistance, such as it was, had gone quiet, probably scared into hiding by the show of force. His communication officer looked up suddenly. "Commander, we have multiple reports. Attacks on the fuel depot, the relay station, supply convoys on 3 different routes, and something about the demon beast at the northern perimeter." Drex felt his crest rise in anger. "How many attackers?" "Unknown, Commander. They're hitting us simultaneously from different positions. It must be coordinated resistance, possibly dozens of operatives." Drex looked at the tactical display. Red markers appeared across the map, each one indicating an attack. His forces were responding, but slowly, caught off guard by the sudden escalation. In the forest, Liam listened to the chaos on the stolen radio and allowed himself a small smile. 7 kids, 1 badger, and an alien commander who was learning the hardest lesson of all. Never underestimate someone protecting what they love. The farmhouse burned against the night sky, and Liam knew exactly why. They'd left it as bait, made it obvious, let the collective track their movements back to this location. Commander Drex thought he was clever, using false intelligence to lure them into a trap. What he didn't know was that Liam had been reading his encrypted communications for days now. Every order, every troop movement, every plan. "They're in position," Owen whispered from behind the old water trough. Around them, hidden in the darkness, the other kids waited. Riley in the barn, Sam and David in the tree line, Annie in the crawl space under the porch. 7 children against 40 collective soldiers. Scraps pressed against Liam's leg, unusually calm. The Badger understood what was coming. He'd been in enough fights now to know the difference between a skirmish and a real battle. "Remember the signal," Liam said into the radio headset they'd stolen last week. "Nobody moves until I say." 6 voices whispered confirmation. The newest kid, a 12-year-old named Peter who joined yesterday, sounded scared but steady. Good. Scared meant you stayed alert. The collective soldiers moved in from 3 sides, exactly like Drex had planned. Precise formation, overlapping fields of fire. They thought they had trapped desperate children who'd run out of places to hide. Liam counted them, 42, not 40. Drex had added extra soldiers at the last minute, smart but not smart enough. "South team, you see the command group," Liam whispered. "Got them," Riley responded. "The big one in the middle is Drex. I recognize him from the scanner profiles." Finally, the commander himself had come. Probably wanted to capture them personally, make an example, show his troops that he hadn't been beaten by children. The soldiers reached the burned farmhouse. They searched it carefully, weapons ready. When they found it empty, confusion rippled through their ranks. One of them spoke into a communicator. Drex's voice crackled through the radio Liam was monitoring. The alien commander sounded frustrated. "Search the outbuildings. They must be hiding nearby." Liam watched them spread out, watched them move toward the barn, toward the tree line, toward all the positions where his people were hidden. He waited. Patience was everything. Dad's notebook said that again and again. The side that stays calm wins, the side that panics loses. A soldier walked past the water trough, close enough that Liam could see the alien's breathing apparatus, close enough to touch. The soldier kept walking, scanning the darkness with his weapon's light. Liam pressed the first detonator. The barn exploded, not the whole structure, just the supports Dad had weakened months before he died. The walls collapsed inward with a roar of breaking wood and falling hay bales. Soldiers scattered, shouting in their clicking language. 3 went down under the debris. Riley was already running, a small shadow sprinting from the barn's rear exit toward her next position. Liam pressed the second detonator. The old grain silo erupted like a volcano. Dad had filled it with modified harvester parts that scattered like shrapnel. More soldiers fell. The formation broke apart as they tried to find cover. Owen whistled sharp and clear. That was the signal for Scraps. The honey badger launched himself from behind the trough and went straight for the command group. Soldiers turned, saw a small earth animal charging at them, and made the mistake of laughing. Right up until Scraps hit the first one like a furry missile of teeth and claws. Chaos, pure, beautiful chaos. Sam and David fired flares from the tree line, bright burning lights that ruined the alien's night vision. Annie set off the sprinkler system that Liam had filled with fuel instead of water. When it sprayed across the hot wreckage of the barn, flames spread in a wide circle. The collective soldiers were trapped in a ring of fire with a honey badger that wouldn't stop attacking and children hitting them from every direction. Liam ran toward the command group. He saw Drex trying to organize a defense while also trying to protect himself from Scraps, who had decided the commander was the biggest threat. The alien was fast, but Scraps was faster and completely unafraid. "Now," Liam shouted into the radio. Peter triggered the last surprise, the one they'd spent 2 whole days preparing. The irrigation tunnels Dad had built under the entire property flooded with pressurized water. Manholes covers blew off. Water sprayed up in geysers, knocking soldiers off their feet. Liam reached Drex while the commander was distracted. He wasn't trying to fight. He was 12 years old and knew better than to think he could hurt an adult alien warrior. But he could talk. "You lose," Liam said. "You lose. Because you thought we were weak. You thought we'd run. You thought wrong." Drex looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Saw a skinny kid in oversized clothes holding a radio and a detonator. Saw Owen running up beside his brother, just as small, just as young. Saw Scraps standing protectively between them, bloodied but victorious. The great commander, leader of battalions, conqueror of worlds, had been beaten by children and a badger. "This is not possible," Drex said in broken human language. "We're human," Owen replied, his voice stronger than Liam had ever heard it. "Everything's possible when you fight for family." The commander's officers were calling for retreat. The ambush had worked too well, too much fire, too much confusion, too many soldiers down. They pulled back, dragging their wounded, leaving equipment behind in their panic. Drex went with them, but he kept looking back at the two brothers standing in the burning farmyard. By morning, reports reached New Haven. The collective invasion force had withdrawn, not just delayed, withdrawn completely. Commander Drex had sent a message to the colonial government requesting ceasefire negotiations. Governor Walsh read the report 3 times before calling for his deputy. "Foster, didn't 2 boys come here last week, warning about an attack?" Foster's face went pale. "Yes, sir, Liam and Owen, we sent them away." Walsh looked out his window at the peaceful streets of New Haven. 3,000 people going about their lives, not knowing how close they'd come to destruction, not knowing that 2 children had saved them all. "Find those boys," he said quietly, "and this time I'll listen." The conference room was too big for children. Liam sat at a table designed for adults, his feet dangling above the floor. Owen fidgeted beside him, uncomfortable in the clean clothes someone had given them. Scraps lay under the table, occasionally making grumbling sounds at the dozen aliens standing around the room's edges. The galactic peace talks had been going on for 3 days. Representatives from 6 different species, all trying to figure out what to do about the human problem, because that's what they called it now, a problem. Supreme Commander Vol stood at the head of the table. She was taller than Drex, with silver markings that indicated high rank. She hadn't stopped staring at the boys since they'd arrived. "Tell me again," she said in perfect human language. "How many soldiers did you command?" "We didn't command soldiers," Liam said for the 3rd time. "It was just us and some other kids we found and Scraps." An alien diplomat from a species called the Providers made a clicking sound of disbelief. "Impossible. The tactical analysis shows coordination consistent with trained military units." Owen spoke up, his voice quiet but clear. "Our dad taught us before he died. He left notebooks. We just did what they said." "Your father was a soldier?" Vol asked. "He was a farmer," Liam said. "But he used to be a soldier. He knew the collective might come. He wanted us to be ready." The room went quiet. Liam saw the aliens exchanging glances. They were scared, he realized. Actually scared. Not of him and Owen specifically, but of what they represented. Vol pulled up a holographic display. It showed the farmhouse battle from aerial surveillance. 42 collective soldiers retreating from 7 children and a badger. "This should not be possible," she said. "Your species should not be capable of this level of resistance from juveniles." "Why not?" Owen asked. "Because children are vulnerable. They require protection. They cannot fight trained warriors." Liam thought about the last 6 months. Hiding in the cellar, going hungry, learning to read alien languages by candlelight, watching his little brother cry silently in his sleep, teaching kids how to make explosives from farm supplies, living every day knowing they might not survive to see another. "Maybe your children can't fight," he said. "Ours can when they have to." A small alien with blue skin, one of the neutral ambassadors, leaned forward. "The collective has agreed to full withdrawal from human territories. They are also offering reparations for damages caused. This is unprecedented. Supreme Commander Vol herself has called for immediate ceasefire across all fronts." Governor Walsh, sitting at the far end of the table, cleared his throat. "The boys deserve recognition for their actions. I propose we establish a colonial defense force with Liam and Owen as advisors." Liam shook his head. "We're not soldiers, we just wanted to protect people." That's precisely what makes you valuable, Vole said. She moved around the table and knelt down to be at eye level with the brothers. Up close, her face wasn't as scary as Liam expected. She looked tired. I have led forces for 30 years. I have conquered 17 systems. I have never been defeated until I faced you. You were defeated by Earth, Owen said, not just us. Yes, Vole agreed. That is what frightens us. If human children fight with this much effectiveness, what will happen when your full military forces mobilize? If your young ones refuse to surrender, how can we ever truly win? Liam finally understood. It wasn't about the battles they'd won. It was about what those battles meant. Every species in the galaxy looked at humans differently now. Not as easy targets, not as primitive colonists, as something dangerous and unpredictable. We don't want to fight you, Liam said. We never did. We just wanted to live on our farm, take care of our animals, be normal kids. But you did not run, Vole said. You did not hide, you fought back with everything you had. This is the human way. Owen reached down and scratched Scraps behind the ears. The badger made a contented sound. It's the way of anything that wants to protect what matters. You just forgot that. You've been conquering for so long, you forgot what it feels like to defend. The room went completely silent. An 8-year-old child had just given a military philosophy lesson to some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Vole stood slowly. She looked at each alien representative in turn. The collective will honor the ceasefire. We will withdraw all forces from human space. We will establish a permanent embassy to ensure peaceful relations. She turned back to the boys. And we will remember what we learned here. That size does not determine strength. That youth does not mean weakness. That humans, even the smallest ones, are not to be underestimated. The negotiations continued for another week, but the important part was over. Humanity had earned its place as a species to be respected, not conquered. Trade agreements replaced invasion plans. Cultural exchanges replaced military operations. Liam and Owen went home. The farm was mostly ruins, but the land was still good. Riley and the other kids helped rebuild. Governor Walsh sent supplies and workers. Other colonists came to help, people who'd been saved without knowing it until later. Within a year, the farm was running again, bigger than before, better organized, a place where kids who'd lost their families could come and learn and heal and be safe. Scraps got older, but never less fearless. He became something of a legend, the honey badger who'd helped defeat an alien empire. Scientists came to study him. Military advisors wanted to train animals like him. Liam said no to all of them. Scraps wasn't a weapon. He was family. Owen talked more now. Sometimes too much, Liam joked. But it was good to hear his brother's voice, even when he was explaining for the 100th time how to properly feed the chickens. They gave tours sometimes when delegations came to visit. Aliens who wanted to understand humans better, who wanted to see where the impossible battle had happened. Liam showed them the cellar where they'd hidden, the barn they'd rebuilt, the fields where Dad used to teach them about life and growing things. Your father would be proud, one visiting alien said. Liam looked at Owen. His little brother smiled back. They both knew it was true. Years later, when the boys had grown into men, someone asked Liam what he'd learned from everything that happened. He thought about it for a long time before answering. I learned that being small doesn't mean being helpless. I learned that family is whatever you make it. I learned that sometimes the scariest thing to your enemy isn't how strong you are, but how much you refuse to quit. Owen added his own lesson, standing beside his brother like he always had. And I learned that when you've got nothing left to lose, you've got everything to fight for. Scraps, very old now but still present, made a sound that might have been agreement. The galaxy had learned its lesson about humans, and humans had learned something too. That even in the darkest times, even when everything seemed lost, even when you were just two kids with a badger against an empire, you could still make a difference. You could still win. And you could still come home.